AITA for refusing to pay the full bill because my meal was against the giant steak I ordered. She made me an appointment with a nutritionist. I honestly never thought I'd be in this kind of situation, but here we are, and I'm questioning if I'm the asshole over a meal I ordered. 127F. I've been married to my husband Nate 31M for years, but we've been together for over a decade. For the most part, we have a great relationship. We've been through a lot, grown up together, and he's always had my back. The problem, however, lies in my relationship with my mill. It's never been smooth sailing, to say the least. She's the type of person who has an opinion on everything, and for some reason, she's laser focused on what I eat. It's been this way pretty much since I met her. I honestly think it started because she just couldn't wrap her head around the fact that I eat a lot and stay skinny. For some people, they just don't get how metabolism works, and instead of letting it go, it becomes their personal mission to analyze every bite you take. And if it's not metabolism, then it's your entire relationship with food, and suddenly, you're defending your portion sizes at family gatherings. For most people, this probably wouldn't be a big deal, but for me, it's been a recurring theme, and it's exhausting. I work with horses, which means I'm on my feet, moving around, burning a lot of calories all day. It's a pretty physical job, so yeah, I need a lot of food to fuel me. I eat large meals because my body needs it, not because I'm trying to make a point. Anyway, normally when we go out for dinner with Nate's family, I try to eat a little something beforehand, just to stave off the inevitable comments from my meal. It's a trick I've developed over the years to keep the peace, because I've found that if I eat smaller portions around her, she has less to critique. Don't get me wrong, she still finds something to nitpick, like if I order fries instead of a salad, or if I have dessert, but it's less intense than if I go all out with a big meal. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's just become this mental game I play to avoid her passive-aggressive remarks. Nate knows about it, and while he always supports me, he's the type who prefers to avoid conflict, so we try not to stir the pot unless absolutely necessary. Fast forward to last Friday. It was one of those days where everything seemed to be happening all at once. I was working with the horses, running errands, and dealing with some unexpected things that came up throughout the day. I hadn't eaten since early that morning, probably around 6 or 7 a.m., and by the time we were supposed to head to dinner with Nate's family, I was starving. Like, I'm not talking I could go for a snack kind of hungry, I mean full on, stomach growling, feel like I might pass out level starving. And I didn't have time to grab a snack before we left for the restaurant, which in hindsight, maybe I should have, but at the time, I figured I'd just order a big meal when we got there and that would be the end of it. Simple, right? Wrong. We met up with Nate's family at this nice steakhouse. It was one of those places that's a little fancy but still pretty casual. Nate's parents were there, his brother Bill, and of course, me and Nate. Right off the bat, I knew I needed to order something substantial. I hadn't eaten in over 12 hours, and my body was basically screaming for food. When the waiter came around, I saw this steak on the menu that was technically meant for 2 people. It came with prawns, bacon, and 2 sides, and it just looked perfect. Plus, I figured if I couldn't finish it, I'd take the leftovers home, no problem. It wasn't even the most expensive item on the menu, which was important because we were planning to split the bill evenly, as we always do when we go out for family dinners. I thought it was a solid choice. I didn't even give it a second thought. Well, apparently, my meal did. As soon as I ordered, she gave me this look and said, "Are you sure you can finish all that? Even my husband wouldn't be able to eat that much, and he's a big man." Now, this is the kind of comment I've come to expect from her, so I just smiled and tried to play it off. I told her, I haven't eaten all day, and I'm starving. If I don't finish it, I'll take the leftovers home. Simple, right? But that was just the beginning. Throughout the meal, I could feel her watching me. Every bite I took, every time I picked up my fork, she was clocking it. And I could hear her making little comments under her breath about how much food I had on my plate. "I can't believe she ordered that much," she whispered to my Phil at one point. It was like she couldn't stop herself. At this point, I was just trying to enjoy my meal because, like I said, I was hungry. I wasn't trying to make a statement or draw attention to myself. I was just eating. The thing is, I did finish the steak, and the prawns, and the sides. I'm not going to lie, it was a lot of food, but it was exactly what I needed. I didn't feel overly full or sick, I was just finally satisfied. I was even thinking about ordering dessert, and honestly, I probably would have if things hadn't taken a turn for the worse right then. After I finished eating, Nil suddenly lost it. She started going on this rant about how I was attention-seeking and putting on a show with how much I ate. She said that I'd made her husband and Bill uncomfortable, that no woman should ever eat that much, and that it was unhealthy. According to her, something had to be wrong with me to finish a meal like that. She didn't stop there, though. She demanded that Nate and I covered the entire bill because, in her words, she wasn't planning on such a big expenditure. Now, let me remind you, Mill and Phil had ordered some of the most expensive dishes on the menu. My steak wasn't cheap, sure, but it was not the most expensive thing by far. So when she said that, I was just stunned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I calmly told her that we were absolutely not covering the entire bill, especially since the plan had been split equally, as we always do. I also pointed out that her own dishes were way more expensive than mine, so if she was worried about the bill, maybe she should look at her own plate first. At this point, Nate jumped in and backed me up. He told his mom that this whole thing was ridiculous and that we weren't going to pay for everyone just because I ordered a large meal. I could tell he was frustrated, but he kept his cool, which I was grateful for. Nil, on the other hand, wasn't having it. She kept insisting that I had ruined the entire dinner by eating too much and that I was being inconsiderate of the rest of the family. After that dinner fiasco, I honestly thought it couldn't get any worse. Nate and I had paid our portion of the bill and left the restaurant, and we spent the rest of the night at home shaking our heads over the absurdity of the situation. We even laughed about how ridiculous the whole thing was. I mean, who goes off on someone for eating a big meal? It wasn't like I had ordered the most expensive thing on the menu and left everyone else to foot the bill. I had my reasons, I was hungry, and that should have been the end of it. But of course, it wasn't. The very next day, I noticed that Nate's family had started posting all these passive-aggressive things on social media, like articles about what might cause excessive eating and other cryptic messages. It was clear they were targeting me without mentioning my name. The whole thing felt like high school drama, but coming from grown adults who were apparently upset that I finished a meal. And it wasn't just Mill, some of Nate's other relatives were chiming in too, adding their little subtle comments or liking the posts. It was all so absurd and childish that I almost laughed. Almost. Then the text started coming in. Nate's mom was sending me links to articles about diets and portion control, which I promptly ignored. The funny thing is, I don't even eat that much on a normal day. My appetite is just proportional to how much energy I burn working with the horses. But apparently, that didn't matter to her. In her mind, I was some kind of out-of-control leader, and she was going to fix it. I didn't reply to her texts because honestly, what could I say that wouldn't just add fuel to the fire? I hoped she would get the hint and move on, but nope. A few days later, my phone rings, and it's her. I was busy working at the stables, so I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again, and again. After the third missed call, I figured it must be something urgent, so I wiped the dirt off my hands, took a deep breath, and called her back. The conversation started off normal enough. She asked how I was doing, how work was, and made some small talk. But I could tell by the tone of her voice that there was something brewing underneath. Sure enough, after a few minutes of chit-chat, she dropped the bombshell. Listen, she started, in that condescending, faux-sweet tone she always uses when she's about to say something insulting but wants to pretend it's coming from a place of concern. I've been thinking a lot about your eating habits, and I'm really worried about you. I was already rolling my eyes. Worried about me? I'm fine, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. Well, she continued, ignoring me completely, I think it's time you started thinking about making some changes. You know, a woman your age should be watching what she eats a little more carefully. It's not just about how much you eat, it's about maintaining a good figure for your health and for Nate. You wouldn't want him to lose interest, would you? I swear, my jaw hit the floor. I was completely speechless for a few seconds. What are you talking about? I finally managed to say. I'm healthy, and Nate has never had any issues with the way I look. Oh, honey, she sighed, like she knew better. You might think you're fine now, but trust me, you should be more careful. That's why I've already made an appointment for you to see a nutritionist. He's excellent. He helped one of my friends lose a lot of weight, and she's feeling so much better now. I'll send you his contact details, and the appointment is next week." I could feel my face heating up with anger. "Excuse me," I shot back, unable to hide my irritation anymore. "I don't need to see a nutritionist. I eat just fine. There's nothing wrong with me, and I certainly don't need someone else dictating what I should eat or how much." But she wasn't backing down. "Oh, sweetie," she said, in that sickly sweet tone again, "this isn't negotiable. I've already set it up. You just have to go. Trust me, it'll be good for you, and Nate will appreciate it too. Men like a woman who takes care of herself." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My blood was boiling. "No," I said firmly. "I'm not going to any appointment, and I don't need a diet. I'm perfectly healthy." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then she hit me with, "Well, if you want Nate to stay interested in you, you should at least consider it. I'm just trying to help you." At that point, I was done. Nate has never had an issue with my body, and he loves me the way I am. I don't need to change myself for him, or for you, for that matter. I'm not going to the appointment, and I would appreciate it if you stopped pushing this. She let out an exaggerated sigh, like she was the victim in all of this. "Fine," she said, "but don't say I didn't try to help you. I'll send you the nutritionist's number anyway, in case you change your mind. You'll thank me later, when Nate starts noticing the difference." I couldn't get off the phone fast enough. I was absolutely livid. The audacity of this woman to tell me that I needed to diet and exercise more so that I could stay attractive for her son like I was some kind of prize he would lose interest in if I didn't meet her standards. I spent the rest of the day seething. Every time I thought about the conversation, I got more and more angry. Who does she think she is, and why on earth does she think she has a say in what I do with my body? Later that evening, when Nate got home, I told him the whole story. I expected him to be just as mad as I was, but to my surprise, his first reaction was to burst out laughing. "You're kidding, right?" he said, still chuckling. "No, I'm dead serious," I replied, a little annoyed that he wasn't taking this as seriously as I was. "She actually booked me an appointment with a nutritionist. Can you believe that?" He shook his head in disbelief, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. "Oh my God, my mom is ridiculous. I can't believe she's pulling this stunt now." "Well, she is," I said, crossing my arms. "And she made it clear that if I want to keep you interested, I should go to this stupid appointment. Like, what the hell?" Nate stopped laughing then, his expression turning more serious. "Look, I don't know what's gotten into her, but you know I love you just the way you are, right? This is her crazy idea, not mine. You don't need to change a thing." "I know," I said, feeling a little relieved that he wasn't buying into his mom's nonsense. "But it's still so frustrating. Why is she so obsessed with what I eat and how I look?" Nate sighed. "She's always been like that, always worried about appearances. I think she projects a lot of her own insecurities onto you. But trust me, you don't have to do anything she says. I love you exactly the way you are, and you don't need to diet or see a nutritionist or any of that crap. We'll deal with her." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Nate always knew how to reassure me, and in that moment, I realized how lucky I was to have him on my side. His mom could keep sending her passive-aggressive texts and articles, but I wasn't going to let it get to me. I wasn't going to change myself for anyone, least of all for her. That night, as we sat together on the couch, Nate jokingly asked, "So, are you going to take her advice and go see this miracle nutritionist?" I threw a pillow at him. "Not a chance," I said, laughing. A few weeks passed, and I thought maybe things had settled down. The passive-aggressive posts on social media from Nate's family had died down, and I hadn't heard much from his mom after that ridiculous conversation about the nutritionist. Nate and I carried on as usual, enjoying our life together and not giving her antics much thought. But then, out of the blue, my phone rang again. It was Nate's mom. I stared at the screen, my stomach flipping a little, wondering what she wanted this time. I took a deep breath and answered. Hi, how are you? I greeted her, trying to keep my tone neutral. Oh, hi dear, she replied, in that overly sweet voice she always used before dropping some kind of bombshell. I've been thinking about you, and I wanted to check in. You know, it's been a few weeks since I made that appointment for you with the nutritionist. I was hoping we could meet up tomorrow, maybe have a nice lunch, and you can tell me all about it. I'd love to see how you're doing. My stomach dropped. She was expecting me to have gone to that nutritionist she'd so kindly booked behind my back. The problem was, of course, that I hadn't gone. I never even contacted the guy, and there was no way I was going to follow her absurd suggestions about dieting when I was perfectly happy and healthy. But now, here she was, practically demanding to see me and expecting to hear all about my supposed progress. I had to think fast. Part of me wanted to tell her right then and there that I hadn't gone to the appointment and that she was completely out of line. But another part of me, the stubborn part, decided to play along for a bit. If she wanted to see how I ate and what I looked like, then fine. I'd let her see, but on my terms. Sure, I said, keeping my voice light. We can meet up tomorrow. How about we go to that new restaurant downtown? Oh, that sounds lovely, she said, sounding a little too excited. I can't wait to see you. We'll meet at noon. Perfect, I replied, though my mind was already buzzing with thoughts of how this would play out. I could tell she was hoping to see some kind of drastic change in me, some proof that her unsolicited advice had worked, but she was in for a surprise. After hanging up, I told Nate about the call. He raised an eyebrow, clearly amused but also a little concerned. So, what's your plan? He asked, sitting down next to me on the couch. I'm going to let her see exactly how I eat, I said, smirking. If she wants to watch me eat, fine. I'll order whatever I want, and I'm not holding back. Nate chuckled, shaking his head. She's not going to know what hit her. The next day, I arrived at the restaurant a few minutes early. Nate had offered to come with me, but I told him I could handle it. Besides, I wanted to make a point on my own. When Nate's mom showed up, she greeted me with that usual forced smile, her eyes immediately scanning me up and down like she was trying to spot some miraculous transformation. I could almost feel her disappointment when she realized I looked exactly the same as I had the last time she saw me. You look good, she said, clearly fishing for some kind of change. But I thought maybe the nutritionist would have helped you slim down a bit by now. I bit my tongue, holding back a retort. I wasn't here to argue, at least not yet. I've been feeling great, thanks, I replied, giving her a tight smile. Let's sit down, I'm very hungry. We were seated at a cozy table by the window, and as we browsed the menu, I could feel her watching me like a hawk, waiting to see what I'd order. I already knew what I was going to do. If she wanted to judge me for my eating habits, I was going to give her a show. When the waiter came to take our order, she daintily requested a light salad and a sparkling water, making a point to emphasize how she didn't want anything too heavy. Then it was my turn. I'll have the steak frite, the truffle mac and cheese as a side, and can I also get the calamari appetizer? Oh, and I'll take a lemonade, I said confidently, handing the menu back to the waiter. I wasn't messing around. Her eyes widened in shock, and I could practically see her trying to compose herself. That's a lot of food, she said, her voice laced with judgment. Are you sure you're going to eat all of that? I smiled sweetly. Oh, definitely. I didn't have time for breakfast, and I'm really hungry today. She pursed her lips but said nothing more for the moment. I could feel her barely contained irritation simmering beneath the surface as we made awkward small talk, waiting for the food to arrive. When it finally did, her reaction was priceless. The waiter placed the plates in front of me, steak, mac and cheese, calamari, and her eyes nearly popped out of her head. Wow, she said, her voice dripping with disapproval. That's quite a spread. I shrugged, digging into my meal with gusto. I told you, I was hungry. As I ate, she couldn't resist making little comments. You know, you really should be careful about how much red meat you eat. It's not good for you in the long run, or, that's a lot of carbs. Are you sure you need all that? I ignored most of it, nodding and smiling occasionally, but not letting her get to me. I was enjoying my food, and that's all that mattered. Finally, after watching me eat in silence for a few minutes, she couldn't hold back any longer. "How can you allow yourself to eat so much?" she asked, her tone incredulous. "I made an appointment with a nutritionist for a reason. He should have told you how much you're supposed to eat." That was it. I put down my fork, wiped my mouth, and looked her in the eye. "I didn't go to the nutritionist," I said, my voice steady. "I didn't need to, and I didn't want to. I'm perfectly happy with the way I eat and the way I look, and I'm not going to change that just because you think I should." Her mouth dropped open, and for a second, she looked like she didn't know what to say. Then she sputtered, but I thought. "I know what you thought," I interrupted, my voice firm but calm. "But this is my body, and I don't need a nutritionist to tell me how to take care of it. I'm healthy, I'm happy, and that's all that matters. I don't need your approval." She was speechless, completely caught off guard. I could see as she tried to process what I'd just said, but before she could come up with a response, I flagged down the waiter and asked for the bill. I paid for my meal, stood up, and smiled at her one last time. "Thanks for lunch. Have a great day." Without waiting for her to respond, I left the restaurant. As I walked out, I could still see her sitting there, completely stunned, her mouth slightly open as she watched me go. When I got home and told Nate what had happened, he burst out laughing again. "You actually told her off," he said, grinning. "That's amazing." "Yeah," I said, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. "I don't think she'd be booking any more nutritionist appointments for me anytime soon." Nate is still on my side, but I can't help but feel like I'm being painted as the villain here for eating a meal. So now I'm wondering, am I the asshole for ordering and finishing a large meal, or is my meal just out of line?